The 6 thinking hats are based on the work of Edward de Bono. Edward de Bono was a pioneer of brain thinking. He thought about directly teaching thinking as a skill. He dedicated his life to helping people improve their thinking abilities and creativity skills. So his 6 thinking hats technique became the thinking tool of top corporations, governments, and world leaders. His methodologies have proven to assist people at all levels of thinking to make faster, smarter decisions. So de Bono uses 6 coloured hats, each representing different types of thinking. He thought that if we are aware of these ways of thinking, we are able to improve communication, deepen lateral thinking, and enable different points of view to be valued and included, which ultimately helps us to understand each other. In an educational environment, using this methodology helps student learning about thinking in ways of critical thinking, creativeness, empathy, and improved communication. The 6 thinking hats help resolve issues amongst people with students. They create lateral thinking, that is, thinking outside of the box, deepen empathy for other people's points of view, and problem solving beneficial to resolving conflict. Thinking is the ultimate human resource. Have you noticed how some people, when presented with a problem, begin talking about what can't be done or what won't work? Or those who move straight to solutions and fixing the problem? Or those who let emotions rule the discussions about the problem and get stuck on their emotional response to the situation? All of which leads to lots of discussion, perhaps a lot of solutions, but might lack in coming to some negotiated conclusions or coordinated actions. So we can improve our thinking skills. Confused thinking arises from trying to do too much at once. We should emphasise what can be, what should be, what could be, not what is. Thinking is beyond memorising or repeating information. Thinking includes processing our prior experiences as part of what we can do this time. It includes all the parts of knowledge, attitudes, understandings, logics, judgments, skills and abilities we have. Thinking is how individuals shape their environment and their understanding of it. So what is parallel thinking? The traditional argument approach to thinking is totally useless for such purposes as finding thoughtful, effective, efficient solutions. We really need parallel thinking, where each thinker puts forward his or her own thoughts in parallel with the thoughts of others, instead of attacking the thoughts of others. For example, oh, that's not going to work, or we did that last time and it was useless. The 6 thinking hats provides a practical way of carrying out parallel thinking. It provides a more constructive alternative to argument or drifting off-topic discussions that ultimately provide no action solutions. It is important to understand that the fundamental nature of the 6 hats method is to improve or provide an alternative to that most basic of thinking procedures, the argument. So the 2 main purposes are simplification of the thinking, so that we deal with one part of the problem or issue at a time. Advantageously, this allows us to switch our thinking from emotional to the creative without threatening anybody's ego. Let's look at each of these represented coloured thinking hats. The first one up is the red hat. So the red hat allows for all the emotions attached with a problem or situation to be dealt with first. Let's get our emotions out on the table. So think of red and fire and warm. It has to do with feelings, intuitions, hunches and emotions. And the red hat gives people permission to put forward their feelings and intuitions without apology, without explanation, and without any need to justify them. Just an opportunity to say what you think. The next hat is the white hat. So the white hat allows for the inquirers and the questioners to get all their questions tabled. The when, what, where, how and why people. It calls for information known or needed. So think of white paper, which is neutral and carries information. The white hat has to do with data and information. What information do we have here? What information is missing? What information would we like to have? How are we going to get that information? The next hat is the black hat. So think of a stern judge wearing black robes who comes down heavily on wrongdoers. Think caution, critical judgment. The black hat prevents us from making mistakes, doing silly things, and doing things which might be illegal. The black hat points out why something cannot be done or why something will not be profitable. The black hat puts those reasons why something won't work on the table. This is the thinking on what could go wrong or can't be done and why. The black hat is judgment, the devil's advocate for why something may not work. So after a black hat, we need a little bit of sunshine, so along comes the yellow thinking hat. The yellow hat opens up for positivity and the benefits of any predicted solutions, the pluses to the situation. So think of sunshine, think of optimism and the logical positive view of things. Look for feasibility and how something can be done. Look for the benefits, but they must be logically based. And that is the green hat. Next. So green. The green hat thinking is creative in its outlook. It's the ideas thinking, and any idea is a possibility regardless of how obscure or out there. So the green hat think of vegetation and rich growth for creative thinking, new ideas and additional alternatives, for putting forward possibilities and hypotheses. The green hat covers provocation and movement. I've said there to be described later, but it's really that provocation is that any idea is a good idea, should be put on the table, and movement, thinking about, what ideas could we use in the future. The last hat is blue sky thinking. And the blue hat asks us to take an overview of what's happened. The blue hat brings all the thinking hats together to put up all possible solutions and to strategically identify pros and cons of each solution and to prioritise which solution is likely to work best, and if not, what would be the next step. So it has process control in mind. It's thinking about thinking. It's setting the agenda for thinking. It suggests the next step in thinking. It's asking for summaries. Here we can provide organised thinking to choose which solution is likely to work best or to set a plan in place to resolve the issue. Let's take an example. The lunch fridge in the staff room is too full. There's old food, leftovers taking up space. So when we put on your red hat, how do you feel about that? Ooh, old food, that'll be better in a science lab than in our fridge. And when it's overflowing, is somebody not eating their lunch? Why is that so? Who's cleaning it out? What's happening? The white hat. Put on the white hat and we ask those questions. What information do we know or do we need to know? So what information do we need to know? Who's putting their lunch in the fridge? Who's leaving their lunch in the fridge? Who's not putting rubbish in the bin when it becomes rubbish? Asking those questions. Who should be helping to clean it out? So, of course, then comes along the black hat. Why isn't it working? Is it not working because nobody's taking responsibility? Is it not working because there's no point of time when the fridge gets emptied out, that it's just been left to pile up? Next comes the yellow hat. Are there any positives in this situation? Well, I think we do need the fridge to put lunch in. Without it, perishables would perish. Then the green hat looks at ideas to resolve. Do we put a notice on the front of the fridge? Do we say that on Fridays whatever's left in the fridge will be put into the bin or into recycling or into the compost? Do we set time frames? Do we ask, is somebody in charge of the fridge being emptied out at the end of the week and that revolves on a roster? What ideas can you think of? Lastly, the blue hat. We look at all the solutions and ideas. We decide which one of those solutions will work best. So you see, working through each of the 6 represented thinking hats allows us to lay out the emotions we have towards the problem first up and respectfully listen to. Address what's known, what's not known, what's not working before we look at the positives, coming up with new ideas and solutions, then sorting through to find the best solution. It avoids mediocre decisions by digging deeper into the facts of the situation and tabling many ways or solutions. It increases productivity. It attracts a more efficient thinking team. It gives credibility to creativeness to get the right solution through a shared vision. So you see, decisions seem to make themselves through the 6 thinking hats.